Good morning, KNS. It is Saturday, January 3rd, 2026. I'm your host, Bud Wiry, and you're back in the shop. So, hey, guys, I hope everybody had a great new year, and now we're moving on back to business. So, the big elephant in the room is pretty much going to be the topic of today is this water that we have. So, we've all talked about, and, so kind of to give a timeline, we found out a year and a half ago that they weren't going to be able to get the water for this L.E.A.P development from the Wabash. So that then they ended up switching their plans to getting the water through the Citizens Network. Well, now probably early to mid November, we found out okay, now they're going to be taking a mass amount of this water from Eagle Creek Reservoir, including a new pipeline out of the reservoir. That's it's affecting I think 475 different properties that are going to have to be either made some sort of a deal to sell the right of way to citizens, or they initially get threatened right off the bat with eminent domain. So the way it is, it's like you can either do this willingly and sell it to us, or we're going to take you to court and you're going to get less. Is pretty much the way the threat's coming across. So, but anyway, so we found out, early mid November, a mass amount of this, and we had the Eagle Creek park people actually putting out a statement saying, hey, we haven't been notified to this. We have our own problems. The Eagle Creek Reservoir is 10, 12 feet below normal as is now. We're having our own problems. We don't think that the reservoir can actually support, providing for this new L.E.A.P personal, this is a development for private companies that we're talking about. This isn't for like the people's benefit because their homes need water or anything else. We're doing all this and this eminent domain and everything for some of the biggest corporations in the world. I mean, this is all for a commercial industrial benefit. It's not to benefit individual people and taxpayers. This is also they can support this big old development that they got going over here. But so let's keep moving on with this timeline. And then so early to mid December, then we also found out now that Lebanon Utilities is looking to take all the wastewater from all this L.E.A.P development and everything, and they're looking to send it back and dump it into the Eagle Creek Reservoir. Now, guys, this creates a whole new batch of problems because Eagle Creek Reservoir provides water for millions of people. It provides water for people in Indianapolis, people in Speedway, people in Brownsburg, people in Pittsburgh, people in Whitestown, Zionsville, soon to be Lebanon. I mean, and a lot of other communities as well, depending on how the Citizens Network routes the water. But I was just picking some of the close ones to it. And so now we're going to have all of this L.E.A.P industrial development dumping its wastewater into the drinking water supply of millions of people. Now let's go over a couple pieces of this, guys. So I've done more looking at this water and what these water treatment plants can remove, what they test for, and everything else than I care to admit. But so pretty much let's just start with Eli Lilly. So Eli Lilly is building some of the biggest pharmaceutical plant in our state there in Lebanon as part of this L.E.A.P development. So they will be this new pipeline going back to Eagle Creek Reservoir will contain the wastewater from Eli Lilly. Now, Eli Lilly has a history of polluting already. They've had to pay settlements over there in Indy. They've had other stuff. So this stuff isn't completely out of the realm. I don't want to hear nobody go, oh, Eli's too good of a company. They wouldn't do that. I mean, they've had to pay settlements because they pumped old people full of antipsychotics. There's all kinds of stuff going on here. So Eli Lilly's wastewater, just to start this thing, is going to be heading towards the reservoir. Now, there's over, from what I've seen, 3,000 pharmaceutical compounds. And you want to know how many of them Citizens Water tests for? None. Citizens Water tests for about 90 different chemicals. So it tests for, glyphosate that in a lot of the Roundup, the farm runoff. They test for, they've handpicked 90 chemicals that they think are a problem. That's what they test for. But there are thousands of other pharmaceutical and industrial chemicals that become present in the water that they don't even test for. So all these chemicals are now going to be dropped in to the drinking water supply of millions of people. And guys, I find this so terrifying. I mean, I wrote emails to the city council and I've emailed back and forth with them. I'm like, what are you guys doing? Because, we've seen across this country, like over there in Flint, Michigan, when these legislative bodies make decisions that then can impact and I asked them, I said, how are you guys going to feel if all of a sudden cancer rates start going up or birth defects or some of these other catastrophic, horrible things that could happen because you're putting all this stuff in the water that's not even going to be tested and the water treatment plants can't take out. This is another big elephant in the room. This is something people don't talk about. They make you guys believe that water treatment plants are better than what they are. And that is the truth. They make a concerted effort to make everybody believe that water treatment plants get everything out of water, and that is incorrect. So in pharmaceuticals alone, since we're on that vein of it, a water treatment plant, they might be able to take out 90% of acetaminophen or something. But there's other chemicals that don't come out of it almost at all. And there's even other pharmaceutical chemicals that the waste treatment process actually compounds them and makes it richer in the water because it doesn't come out and the process helps more of it bind together. So you can actually get more pharmaceuticals, part per million or however they're measuring it and whatever quantity it is into the water by the waste treatment plant. These waste treatment plants, guys, they can get out, your waste solids, your this, and, sometimes that process, adding carbon filtering or whatever, they have a process like putting carbon sludge in it. I seen it at one of the citizens plants. But, some of these other processes might take out some percentages of it, but there are thousands of chemicals that are getting by, thousands of chemicals that they're not even testing for. And it's going into everybody's water. So I've put out this information on my page before because I already had concerns about the citizens' water because we're seeing these health problems. I mean, I think you guys are just like me. You look around, you're like, why is this stuff more prevalent today than what it seemed to be? Why are we having all these problems? So I've generally been curious about this on my own. And now, so on top of all the other problems that we've already been having in our water supply, like Indiana, and this is another hard truth, Indiana has some of the most polluted waterways in the U.S. already. Now, so that's why I was saying a lot of the stuff that I was seeing in the water, we were already having some of these problems. We're already having problems with trace pharmaceuticals. We're already having problems with all of these other chemicals they're not testing for and all this other stuff. Well, but now we're talking about taking a 10,000 acre development over here in Lebanon, Indiana, with the biggest pharmaceutical companies in the state, and then you also have the big metadata center and all this other stuff that's going to be there. And we're going to take all that wastewater from them. And Matt Gentry, the Lebanon mayor, says that it comes out of the waste treatment plant perfectly drinkable. And that's an absolute lie. I'm going to get to that real quick. But we're going to take all of that wastewater and we're going to dump it right into the drinking water supply of millions of people. Say that back to yourself real slow, and that's why it's got me so worked up. And honestly, guys, it's been New Year's. I've been on family time, and I really, there was a part of me that was like, just play a replay show this week because, I've been on family time. I ain't had a lot of time for show prep in between the other things I've been doing. But this is so important, I kind of squeezed out here in the morning. That way I could get it done because this is a giant deal. We're talking about the water supply of millions of people in all these communities. And, I've posted about this stuff. And when they talk about it, they sit there and these other communities have not been made aware of these problems. But so back to the Matt Gentry thing real quick. So he says that is perfectly good drinking water when it comes out of the waste treatment plant. And that is an absolute lie, guys, because if it was perfectly good drinking water when it come out of the waste treatment supply, they would not pump it 25 miles back to Eagle Creek and then 25 miles back here to Lebanon again. They would pump it 2 miles down the road and right into the top of that damn water tower so they could use it again. You guys are being lied to. And that is the big elephant in the room. They keep trying to, tell you whatever it is you want to hear to get these projects moving down the road. So you've seen initially, before the annexations even started, Gentry came out and told everybody there was enough water for these developments. We have everything. It was okay. All systems go. And then next thing you know, it's $700 million of taxpayer money is going to be paying to put a pipeline in to feed these giant companies. Next thing you know, oh, now we're going to take this water from the Eagle Creek Reservoir that's already having height problems. And, there's a bunch of wildlife and other environmental concerns in that way because, there's habitats, there's bird sanctuaries, or this and that. I know people that spend their whole summers out there fishing. I mean, and you got to think, in a lot of our bodies of water in Indiana already, you can only eat a certain amount of fish because so many chemicals, but it's the same thing. They only test for so many chemicals. So some of these other chemicals, especially the ones like we were talking about earlier, that, accumulate in the wastewater treatment, some of this stuff might build up in the fish and other things. So people might be consuming it that way. And, I hear a lot, people are like, well, I don't drink the water out of my tap anyway. It's nasty. I buy bottled water, which, okay, that's fine and dandy. You get your water somewhere else for drinking. But when you go to Arby's and you get that fountain Coke, where do you think that water comes from? When you get this food made over at a restaurant or in your house, where is this water coming from? So this same product is being put in everything, guys. And we really need we need to be getting away from the water problems that our state is already having, not increasing them by dumping giant industrial developments into the drinking water of millions of people. Now, guys, so this brings me to another point that's been going on. We've now been starting to see a little bit of pushback from this. So while they've kept all this hidden, like I said, they hide all these details right at the end, and they're laying pipe right now. So that what they do is, they tell everybody the last minute, they push hard and try to make it to where it's too late by the time the people engage so that they can shove it down our throat. But like right now, we're starting to see some pushback from Indianapolis leaders. So I seen that the Pike Township over there, they had a big meeting not too long ago, had several of their local politicians involved in it. And it was standing room only. People are packing the house because once you start talking about everybody's drinking water being pumped full of pharmaceutical and industrial chemicals, they start to pay attention, which is why they're trying to rush it through and hide it so quick. So, they had a big meeting there. People are pushing it. And then I seen one of the faith leaders from one of the big black churches over there in Indianapolis. And I shared that, their letter to all these politicians and everything. I shared his letter to my page, the shop page. You guys ought to go over there. If you guys don't, if you're just hearing this when I'm talking to you now, please go back to the shop page. All the information, all the stuff that I talk about, I put down there, and I try to load all the information onto it almost as a way to collect it as well. But so when I tell you that the waste treatment plants only filter out so much of it, that's there. When I tell you the dates of these things happening, all the exact details, it's all there on the page. So, but anyway, this faith leader over there, in Indianapolis, what he put out was, this is, once again, it's disproportionately them affecting the drinking water supply of a lot of black and minority people. And that's true because even though the same water is going to be pumped back to Lebanon, it's going to be pumped back to Whitestown, it's going to be pumped back to Zionsville, by the numbers that barely scratches a dent in the population of like an Indianapolis and a Speedway and all of this that has a lot of those minority communities. So, that was kind of his lines. Like here we have these biggest corporations in the world, and we have a bunch of, probably from their take, we have a bunch of white people over here in this other community talking about, hey, let's send all this nastiness out of our community, and let's put it down into their drinking water. So, I kind of felt a vibe of that through his posting. And this stuff matters, and this stuff is waking people up because there are real concerns. And I'm not saying it's a black or a white thing, because like I said, everybody's community is going to be getting these poisons and these toxins. But, from the outside looking in, and that's part of what's been engaging. It's one thing to have somebody in your own community making your little pond nasty. But what, from these guys' standpoint, they don't get no benefit. This stuff is all happening over in Lebanon. This has nothing to do with it. Some of them probably never even been to Lebanon. And all of a sudden, this community over here is wanting to put all their nastiness into their drinking water. And, like I said, if it wasn't nasty, if it was perfectly okay, then they would put it right back in the water tower, but it's not. It contains thousands of chemicals that they're not testing for, and they all know that too. And that's the other thing that drives me nuts about this. So when I was telling you guys that I was sending emails back and forth to the city council, the one city council member that I was speaking with, Mr. Dick Robertson, in a very polite conversation back and forth, but he was kind of going from the, we care, but there's, lots of things cause cancer in people, and these things happen, and we don't live in a very pure world. And some of this, and I'm mind blown, guys, because it does, all of this stuff bothers me so bad because I come from a predictive maintenance background. That is kind of what I cut my bread and my butter is I try to solve problems before they happen. And watching this is the equivalent of watching a train wreck. I'm like, so we can all agree that all these chemicals exist in the water. We can all agree that they don't test for all of it. And then you're still just going to smile and nod as you dump it all in everybody's drinking water. And I mean, there has been, and I posted some of these on one of my pages as well, about the different communities across our country that have had these big events. And that's something that, and it's part of why I'm reaching out to all of them, and part of why I'm making them all aware and doubling down on the fact that they know what's going on. Because there is a chance if this causes problems later on, they could face personal litigation over that. I mean, you look over it in Flint, Michigan, I think there was, 9, 10 of them that faced legal suits against them personally. Because what it is when and that's the whole thing. If you can say, hey, I didn't know that was going on, and you can try to play stupid out, but when it's been put in front of you that this is absolutely what's happening, and then you guys choose to do it anyway, you guys are opening yourselves up. And, so I posted a video, kind of a slideshow the other day, and it showed, the mayor who brokered these deals, Matt Gentry, he brokered these deals, and then he leaned on the council to get it all passed and approved. He's had his hands in every bit of this. And, I seen somebody on one page trying to give him a pass, and that's absolutely asinine. He's appointed most of the people to these boards. He has sat there and leaned on everybody to do all this stuff. He's taken millions, him and his daddy's company, from politicos for decades. They even Braun, that gave him hundreds of thousands of dollars this last cycle for his governor's bid. And, Braun endorsed Gentry back in 2019. I mean, they are 100% in on every bit of this that's going on. There's no passes given. So I posted this slideshow, and it had the mayor on it with his contact information. Then it went into the city council members with their contact information, because they all had to vote to approve that. Every bit of this had to have a vote to approve it. And then it went on to posting of the Lebanon Utilities Board, because every one of these bodies had to approve it. So every one of these people looked at this and said, hey, I think dumping industrial wastewater from pharmaceutical and data centers into the drinking supply of millions of people is a good idea. And I'm going to vote yes. And that is absolutely terrifying. And I say this all the time. We do not have our best and brightest leading our country and leading our people. We have the people that are easily the easiest to buy and pay for by, corporations and these other entities, because they very rarely do they actually look out for the benefit of the people. And you guys know that to be true. You see it time and time again. And so, guys, I'm going to wrap it up early today. Like I said, I didn't have a giant show prepared. I just could not help but coming out here and talking to you guys a little bit about this massive problem that we're all looking at. Guys, if you don't engage any other topic all year long, guys, you need to engage this one. This is not just affecting, certain people's households. Every one of us. I get my water from a well, then I run it through my own personal filtration system for flavor. I mean, I do all this stuff. And so this is not really affecting my personal drinking water, but I do like to go get a fountain Coke when I go out to have dinner. And it's getting pretty rare, the places where that's being possible. But guys, you need to engage this stuff. We need to get out there and fight for this one. If you're going to fight anything, it needs to be this, because this is the water supply of millions of people. And the more you think about it, the more you get into the details, research the water, research, how much of these waste treatment plants can actually filter. Research how bad they really are at getting out a lot of these toxins. Research how many these pharmaceutical plants, how much of it they release. Research these data centers, how much they release. Why do they not reuse this water? They don't reuse it because it takes a lot to get the contaminations out. And the reality is the reason why they don't pump it 2 miles down the road back into the top of the water tower to use again is because they count on the dilution provided by the drinking water of millions of people to clean it up enough to where they can use it again for their industrial purposes. And guys, I always try to leave Saturday on a high note. I want you guys to think that if you guys want to know what the high note is people are seeing it. People are engaging it. I got people from all over communities, people from Pittsburgh, Brownsburg, Speedway. I got people reaching out from all of these different communities because their politicians have hid this from them. And mostly because, the Lebanon politicians and citizens and all that probably hid it from their community. So a lot of them are just now finding out as well. But I got people reaching out from everybody. People are concerned. People do not want to see the Eagle Creek Park Reservoir become a dump site for Eli Lilly and Meta and all these other people over here. And you want to know if you know something to lean on. This is going to be their legacy. They go through with this and dump all these chemicals into our Eagle Creek Park and Reservoir. This is going to be what they're remembered for, because I will help everybody make absolute sure of it. Everything that you guys see me post, it is because I'm keeping track and record of it so that later on it can be put into something, so that when people and our kids and our grandkids ask questions later about how and why did this happen, we're going to have the answer for them. So guys, you have yourselves a great rest of your weekend. Try to take a little time to think about what I said. I know it's so deep, and I know that, nobody likes to get into, all these problems that we got going on. Nobody wants to frump their day up thinking about this stuff. But of all the things that I talk about, and I reach out to you guys a lot, and we discuss a lot of different topics, this one, guys, is very important. So please, take a little time, think about the stuff that I've talked about here. Go to the shop page. I got the YouTube channel now that I'm starting to, you can look me up. I'm named Bud Wiry. It's the quickest way. There's not a lot of Bud Wiries out there, so it's the quickest way to get to my YouTube channel. And, let's all take the time to support KNS and our sponsors over there. If it wasn't for them guys, then I wouldn't have this platform to be able to reach out for you the way I am now. And, we got all kind of work together, and I do take, and like I said, for the highlight of the show and the ending and the uplifting part, is I do take a lot of, consolation in the fact that all of these people, all of these groups, they're coming together more and more every day. I can see it. I can feel it. And this is not a bipartisan, guys, I'm a staunch conservative, admittedly so, but I talk to a lot of Democrats. I talk to Democrat politicians. I talk to these other people. This is not a partisan issue. This is all of us. This is a people issue, and we're both getting it from both sides. I applaud the Democrats inside the city who are working towards getting this stuff, working towards these problems. But I also know that there's Democrat people that are in bed with citizens helping to push this stuff through. And it's the same way with Republicans, guys. So this is not a partisan issue. This is a people issue, and we all need to work together on it. So, guys, you have yourselves a great rest of your weekend. I'll see you next week.